Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to see you. I'll apologize. I just got out of the shower, so I have wet hair today. But it kind of goes with what the day is. So there is an eclipse beginning tomorrow night, and it's a full moon eclipse. So we're all going to feel it. And we're probably already feeling it. The energy is disrupted, is what we'll say. And so it just feels weird. And that's just how the energy is right now. And the best thing to do is be a little bit quiet. It's a good time to not start something new or do anything that's going to have a major impact in the future. Make a big decision or anything like that. So just be a little bit quiet. If that's possible. I mean, we all have to do what we have to do. We're not telling you not to participate in your life, just to be a little bit careful because it's a time where it's like a wild card. That's why we're having trouble with language. It's like there's a wild card energy. And so you can think you're doing something in some direction. And there's a lot of intensity, so it feels like we have to do something. And so it's a good time to just not do anything or do only what needs to be done with as much clarity as we can muster. So that's what we'll say about that. So it's got the whole world a little bit discombobulated is how we can say it. And so our expectations for what happens around us need to be adjusted appropriately. They're just wild cards in the air. That's how we can talk about it. So we welcome your questions. So let's meditate first. Sorry, it's that kind of day. So let's get quiet. And we'll do the Om meditation, but this time, as we promised last time, we want you to close your eyes, but not all the way. They're just open a tiny slit, like almost like you're looking down at your nose. So there's just a hair of light that you're allowing in, because the real thing about meditation is we don't want to go somewhere else. We want to stay present and be present to that divine source energy in the same moment. So we'll do our usual meditation with the Om sound, aloud 9 times, whispered 9 times, said internally 9 times, and then just watching the energy rise 9 times. So gently allow yourself to accommodate the light further and come back into the room. We welcome your questions. So happy to be with you this morning. We missed you last week. So how may we serve?
Hi, this is Paul.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm all right. So I had you were saying it's, full moon energy, which I believe is tonight on the West Coast, starting about 7 and going for about 6 hours. But when you were saying it was time to be quiet, I had a kind of a funny visualization. It's one of my favorite cartoons. It's a cartoon with two buzzards, vultures sitting on a branch, and one of them's going, "Patience, my ass, I'm gonna kill something." So just that's what went through my mind as you were saying that.
Well, you know, the word lunacy has everything to do with the full moon. And this is a full moon eclipse. So, you know, we could say the part of us that gets eclipsed is our capacity for reason. I don't know that that's really true, but I think it's a safe way to think about it because the energy is so intense. That's the word that we'll use, intense. And so as it passes, it can incite anything in us. And the nodes of the moon they're just wild. We'll use that word. And so it's a time to be careful. That's all. Careful thought word indeed. And what we're really wanting to talk about meditation is how it's not about going somewhere else, or in a way about becoming something else, but it's really about stabilizing ourselves in this world as we expand to unify with that which is our source. So we're not going somewhere else, and we're not becoming something different. We are becoming our potential. We are cultivating our union with the highest, which is not some other or some other location or when we beg and plead in ourselves, we are speaking to our highest. I'm sorry, thank you, I love you. The potency of this is it clears the way for our own understanding. Which is not a mental experience, but a visceral experience of love itself. And one of the surest ways to experience this love is to actually feel into a relationship with someone you are really close to who has passed on. Because that love doesn't die. And that experience allows us to have some stability in the face of everything that we go through in this life. And in a way, there's truth to that statement that death and taxes are the only things you can depend on. I don't remember what the real statement is, but this is really a statement of spiritual practice. Be present and be connected in the same moment. And that connection, what we're really saying is pay attention to two energy centers, the one right below your belly button that grounds us into the earth. And then our heart, that is the experience of love itself. And we talk about love, peace, joy, and gratitude because the alternatives are always there. But our life is far more wonderful if we concentrate on love, peace, joy, and gratitude. Doesn't mean that we don't experience the opposite. We all do. But we can regroup and it doesn't mean that we deny the opposite either. We understand that it's part of the whole and it's part of our daily life experience. We also understand that where we put our attention, the only control we have in this life is where we put our own attention. And as we've all discovered, as we've tried to control our attention, that's very difficult. There are a billion distractions. So that leads us to self-acceptance, understanding what is. And we do our best at everything we try to do. And in doing that, we're informed mostly of how we could do better. And that's all okay. But this cultivation of the open heart is really worth it. How may we serve? We're kind of wandering around today. Andrew? So it's a good time to meditate. Good time to say mantra. Our favorite mantra these days is the Heart Sutra. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. This is the mantra of the open heart. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Those are words to live by. Prajnaparamita, it's a mantra to Prajnaparamita. Prajnaparamita is beyond words. You could call her the all of the all that is, the source, and really beyond gender. Beyond the beyond, there's no image that can truly represent Prajnaparamita. It is that field of source energy. And Sanskrit words are believed to be divine intonations, that the syllables themselves hold divinity in them. We don't know if this is true for humanity, but we do know that there is no harm contained, only good And so knowing that expands our heart, our spiritual heart in the center of our chest. And then we just breathe into that experience. At the same time, holding our eyes open and being present. This is the intersection of our the feeling could be that we're two places at once, but not really. We are unifying the inward and the outward, but in a total way, not just from our head, not just from our reactivity, but from the totality of our beingness. We're taught from a very young age that the only thing that's important is what floats in our head, the ideas that float in our head. And so we behave according to what we decide there. So meditation is really taking our attention into the deeper, deeper, deeper layers of ourselves so that we can feel our totality of being and begin to experience the source of that being, that field of energy that we come from and return to, that powers everything in our beingness and everything in our presence. And well, it goes beyond the linear vocabulary. So we invite you to feel in yourself that open-hearted experience, to breathe into your heart. And sometimes what you feel there is a kind of density, and that's fine. You just hold your attention there and allow that density, invite it to melt. And as this melts, you begin to experience yourself as a column of light. This is the central channel. And even if that isn't your experience at the moment, imagine that there is a column of light joining heaven and earth, coming through the center of us. And you can imagine that column of light like a shower of white light that is releasing every part of us that no longer serves, that no longer serves the highest. And then as that experience begins to expand, you consciously breathe into it. And you allow it to inform you about itself, which is yourself with a capital S informing yourself with a small s. This is magnificent. Does it free us from our blueprint? Not exactly. But it gives us a context for every experience that we have and a place of reference for what exactly we want to live from and what we want our life to be about. Does it change our life? Absolutely. For the better? Absolutely. It embraces every part, every experience of our life. You know, the problem with human language is it's basically reductive. You know, it brings things down to its smallest part. And there's very little language that can point to the whole. It's all about the parts and describing more and more minutely these parts and how they work together, and describing, trying to bring everything into finite reality. Whereas infinite reality is the opposite, and we have no language for that except for one word, infinity, which really encompasses everything without judgment. And when we can see without judgment, then we can begin to understand discrimination. But until we let go of our judgment, we're stuck in our reactivity to whatever. And reactivity and reduction, narrowing our experience, are the same. We wish somebody would ask a question. Because we run out of language so frequently in trying to talk to you about this. It's hard to have a conversation. And it's even harder to have a monologue. How may we serve you?
I'm innately curious as to this full moon eclipse happening right on top of the primary elections. I don't know even if there's any discussion around that, but it's just something that about change and is there any anticipatory trajectory for this change, or is it just all over? I don't know. I don't even know if there's a question in there. I'm just sharing what's coming up to see if that prompts anything for discussion, but that's in the space for me at the moment.
Well, are you speaking of the November 8th election?
Tuesday, the
Tuesday.
primaries. Yeah.
Okay, these primaries.
Yeah.
Well, we would say in the lives of American women at this moment, there is a cataclysm that must be addressed, or it will become the reality. And so even Rebecca has made us very aware of this because it has been a very emotional emotional subject for her. And so her reactivity in this fear, and, you know, since the Roe versus Wade discussion came up, has been for her extreme. She, as a physician, has hardly met anyone of a similar age who didn't at some point at least consider an abortion because they didn't feel ready or able, for whatever reason, to have a child at a time when they got pregnant. And so not having that option, not having any voice in reproductive rights is almost unimaginable to people who've had that. And the repercussions, you know, especially the extreme case where what it really means is that, you know, someone can be raped and they would still not, they would have to have that child. And in a world where there's no place for unwanted children that any of us would ever want to go, except, you know, a loving household that has more than enough. And we know that's rarely the case for unwanted children, that they end up in that kind of situation. So without any provision for that situation, it seems very much like this is an attempt to legislate the female opinion out of existence, out of capacity, by forcing women in their productive years to have children. So it's a thinly veiled reduction of opportunity for women, and an attempt to eliminate our voice from the political arena and force us into domestic slavery. So this is maybe an extreme position, but maybe not. Maybe this is the truth of what's really happening. And so we kind of hope that this question didn't come up because, you know, this is how it seems. And from a personal perspective, this is evil. It's very destructive. And, you know, there is the obvious experience that women don't wage war. And so taking our voice out of the political arena really seems counterproductive for the fate of humanity in the long run. So this is where Rebecca's thoughts have been. So the best way to view this is as an opportunity to take back our voice, to raise our voices, and to require that they not be lost. To require that our voting rights be maintained, that diversity be allowed, because of course, it's all about white male power. That's all we can say. When you really look at it, that minority is calling the shots. And so we must mobilize. So let me make sure that Anasa is really here, and this isn't just personal reactivity, because it easily could be. So let me just take a minute and get quiet. So one of the things we love about Rebecca is her passion, which is certainly shining through in this moment. And we agree that diversity is part of what makes human life ever more refined. When a person travels to a foreign culture, their matrix of belief expands exponentially, because they come to understand that not every human being thinks in the same way, and not every culture behaves in the same way or values the same things. And so this is why in many spiritual teachings, they say that if you love your child, as soon as they're of age, you'll send them on a long journey so that they learn about the world. They learn about diversity. Humanity has been through many, 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 many cycles of masculine and feminine dominance. And either works. What works is the fundamental assumption that diversity is a good thing, and that we all grow, that we all become bigger in our acceptance of all parts are welcome. Because this is true of our experience, whether we want it or not. We live through all kinds of things, diverse experiences. Some of them we label good and some we label bad, depending on our matrix of belief. different ones of us are called to behave in the external world in different ways. And certainly at different stages in our lives. So we understand Rebecca's call to mobilize in the external world in the face of this political situation. We still maintain that it should be done from love. Everything should be done from love. And that bringing these, first of all, the acknowledgement of the anger and frustration that comes in the face of these circumstances, acknowledging and accepting that rage. No denial. Front and center, acceptance. But instead of turning that rage outward in a destructive way, or inward in a destructive way, breathing, saying Ho'oponopono. To all the lifetimes burned at the stake. And understanding the answer is always love. Always. Yes. We're not getting your sound. Oh, so sorry. It's that wild energy. It does affect our electronics. Yes, Carol.
If you can hear this,
Oh, yes.
probably too loud. Pam, you could write it in the chat, maybe.
While we're waiting for that, there was a question in the chat or an ask. It says, would you speak to the astrology surrounding the full moon lunar eclipse?
Well, we pretty much did. You know, the wild card is as far as we're willing to go. Because it affects every person differently, depending on what their arrangement of the planets is. That experience filters into their life in a different way. That's why whenever they do, global predictions in the newspaper. They say for this sign, this, for this sign, this. And even that is a gross oversimplification. And so since Rebecca is learning astrology, she's very much focused in the details, and the big picture isn't. The big picture is really that an eclipse like this is a wild card, that the moon is our emotions. And when the moon is full, there is a fullness of feeling. Now, how that radiates through, and then the eclipse energy is that the sun and moon.
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, there you are. You're here. We've got your audio.
Yay,
That's your question. Yes.
go for it.
Well, do you want to finish up on the answer to the question?
No,
About the-
we're completely
Better jump in.
distracted. Please tell us your question.
Okay, he's saying do it quickly. Okay, so I have been examining in myself the question of that you were talking about abortion. And having experienced that in my lifetime, I know where I came from on that question. It seems like the people who are against it, some of them have a valid belief that it's killing someone, killing another person. And what I felt and saw in my own experience was that you can't kill the creative energy. You don't stop it. You just redirect it. It's like, now is not a good time for you, little spirit, to come through here. Move along or whatever. And I have been trying to compose a message. I don't know where I'm going to send it, but it's a description of my experience. But I want to include that counter-religious expression, because it's not a religion, it's my experience that is what happens. My father died when I was young. Our father died when I was young, and I have been in contact with his whatever it is all my life since then. My grandmother also, you were saying, connect with someone who you love that has died, and that has been constant. And so I know his last words to me were, I've seen death, there's nothing to be afraid of, because he was on his way out at that point. And that was the greatest gift that's come back to me over and over and over again. And I know the energy doesn't have anywhere else to go. It's everywhere all the time. So it's just a different form. How do you express that to someone whose belief system is logical? It's like, yes, this life started to form, and now you're cutting it off at the knees or whatever. You're doing something cruel. And that is not my experience, but I don't know how. It's like, how would you educate someone else in what your spiritual experience is?
So,
Sorry, that was so long.
no, this was beautiful, beautiful report. We are so delighted to hear this. And of course, it's absolutely right. It's absolutely right. Now, we'll also share Rebecca's experience. Although when you spoke about your father and death, all the hairs on her head stood up at the same time. It was just like, oh yes, this is the truth. This is
Yes.
the absolute truth. And this is one of the things we want to say. When there's truth, there is a visceral reaction in our body. And so, as always, when there are people who seriously disagree with our point of view in a spiritual way, we cannot talk to them directly. We've had that experience over and over and over.
Yeah.
The only way we can talk to them is to speak to their highest self. So this means that every day we go into the Anasa temple and we speak to the higher selves of those who believe that abortion is killing. We speak to their higher selves. We invite all of them into the Anasa temple. And we speak to them and we say, this is our true experience. And we allow that to be. We allow that situation to be. We understand that we are using the most powerful force we have ever experienced in our own lives. And the truth of that, and we go to the Anasa temple, we invite the whole world. And we say, please hear my plea. This is not killing, this is redirecting energy. And, you know, we're going to share Rebecca's experience because it points to the confusion that can arise in a woman who has an abortion, who's young and never experienced pregnancy before. And what that experience was for her. She was in her 20s and had an IUD that didn't work. So, you know, that is frustrating to say the least. But
Shoot.
yes, and so, but there was no feeling like something wrong was done, you know, because she did the best she could to take care of that situation in advance. And that the science failed was not her responsibility. That was her attitude. So she had the abortion, but the hormonal experience afterwards was so profound. It was like the body was geared toward creating this other being, like all the hormones were geared in this way. And it was like slamming full force into a brick wall hormonally and just completely deflated, like a chemical depression, unlike anything she had ever experienced. Now, that could have been interpreted as divine retribution. It could be. So someone could feel that if they didn't understand that this was a hormonal experience that any woman would have in that situation. And probably every woman that has had an abortion has experienced that, because it's a really dramatic. But your understanding is absolutely right. There's and that had nothing to do with spirit. That was a pure hormonal physiologic experience. That was not a spiritual experience. It was a body, you know, bodily emotional reaction. And she also came from a very patriarchal religious background. So we go back to the same solution. You go to the Anasa temple, you invite those who think that abortion is killing, and you tell them it's redirecting energy. And, you know, many women, when they have an abortion, they contract with that spiritual energy. This isn't the right time. the right time will be in a few years when I can do this well. This is what many, many women do. They make a contract with that energy that when the timing is right, they will be available. And so this is right understanding.
Not.
This is right understanding that the energy of spirit we can direct. This is our part of our power. And we can choose the time and place. And that this is a great gift. This is how we treasure life, by offering our best timing, our best self. And we love this. So anyone who feels motivated to practice in that way, this is power. This is spiritual power. Holding the truth and speaking it to the higher self of the world, over and over and over. Yes. You see the visceral experience of truth. And this is why ultimately it cannot be denied. We love your sharing. Thank you so much. How may we serve further? So beautiful. Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Nancy.
Okay.
So happy to
Okay.
hear your voice.
Yes, nice to be here today. Well, I also too experienced a few abortions, and I'm just so saddened myself. I haven't mourned for a long time, but it comes right back. But it just occurs to me with Roe and Wade possibly coming into changing things. Why is it that women have to hold all the responsibility for this, and men should take their part too, unless the child is wanted? They could take precautions as well. I'm just needing to speak into that, because that certainly isn't being considered. And wow, like Supreme Justices would maybe think twice of having men having to take care and precaution for that.
Well, we would go a little further. When someone creates a life, they're responsible for its maintenance.
Yeah.
It's not, it takes two people. It takes two people. But we agree with you.
I just had to speak into that.
Yes.
I understand on our practical level or whatever, but on a more of speaking of love, about the caring of how care could be brought into this in a deeper way.
Well, this whole issue speaks to a profound disrespect for life itself.
It does.
Profound.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yes.
What else can you say?
Yeah, really.
It's very sad.
It is very sad, and we can be sad. We can be enraged. We can feel whatever we feel.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we cannot use it as a force against ourselves.
Correct.
to reject ourselves.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
must absolutely continue with love and speak to the highest in the Anasa temple and act as we feel moved to, some of us need to be politically active to protect our future, and certainly the future of the children who will be born and their choice.
Right.
Most of us are beyond that decision. So it's not
I know.
even really relevant. But we're reacting because our own past was so informed and has been so informed by our ability to choose.
That's, yeah, that's the point.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
And so the most powerful thing we can do is in the Inasa temple.
Yeah.
We've always told you that, and
Yeah.
we're going to continue to tell you that. As Brenda, she's reminding me it's time for meditation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for today.
You are so welcome.
It just seemed like a good segue.
Thank you.
Yes. So, let's do the mantra. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. And we'll say it out loud for a while so that you can say it with us until you're really comfortable with it. Does everybody know it? Is there anybody who?
A little bit.
I put it in the chat.
Oh, good.
If you open up the chat, it's written there.
Okay, so just click on the chat and you'll be able to see the mantra. But we'll say it a few times so you can get the hang of it and say it with us. To Prajna Paramita, who is beyond speech, thought, expression, and wisdom gone beyond, who is unborn and unceasing like the nature of space, who is the awareness of transcendent wisdom. Homage to the mother of all three times. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. 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 Thank you so much. Really a pleasure to be with you today. You guys are wonderful. So much love to you. Bye for now.